understanding what they mean, he fully understands what love and religious faith meant. So this hot-blooded poet.
Thank you so much, Javiera. So what can we rescue? What can we remember? What do you think it's interesting for this section? This is an open question, right, for everyone. I mean, we get some ideas about John Donne, right? Intensely passionate would probably be someone who defends his opinions, right? Up to the point of seem to be a little bit too straightforward, too telling each other's or everyone's, right, his own truth. He talks to his mistress and God. That's a combination that you can find in metaphysical poetry, right? In which just the poet addressing the mistress, right, the lover, but also here God. So that's something that is connected in this poem. And if you're familiar with John Donne's biographical aspects, you will know that he is a very religious man, besides being a poet. And the use of complex and contorted images is what is called conceits, right? So conceits, it's a very interesting literary term that I'm typing in the chat, which is comparison, basically, a metaphor. So there is a comparison between very unlikely elements, and that's quite common to be found in the metaphysical poetry. In general, you would expect for, say, a sonnet to compare a lover or a mistress, if you remember, to roses, to anything that it's natural, to the summer, to nature, right, to flowers blooming, etc., etc. But in metaphysical poetry, the metaphors are very intricate, right? They're very complex. They are really not easily understood from a very first look. You have to reflect a little bit about what the poet wanted to say in order to get the metaphor or the comparison, the conceit, basically. And a hot-blooded poet, hot-blooded has to do with the concept of being passionate, right? So this poem, as we can easily perceive, is a 3-stanza poem, right? The first 2 stanzas made of 4 lines, and the last stanza made of 6. Right? That's the first thing that probably calls our attention, visually speaking. If at the rhyme scheme, we have here a you, mend, bend, and new. So probably we would have, how do you call this rhyme scheme? Or which, we usually use letters, right? Which letters would you use to show the rhyme scheme or the rhyming pattern in this first stanza? Being
A.
you, A.
ABBA? ABBA?
ABBA. Do you all agree with that?
Yes.
Yes, right? Sounds like it. Now, ABBA, does it apply to the same in the second paragraph? In the same way? Do and defend untrue?
ABBA as well.
ABBA as well. All right. Now, in the last stanza, we have more lines, so probably we're not having the same rhyming pattern. Which rhyming pattern can you identify in the last stanza? We have feign, enemy, again, I, free, me. What do you think?
You move the page a little bit down because it's missing like the last part, please.
Sure. Right
Yes,
here?
yes.
Okay. So we don't have the same rhyme scheme as in the previous stanzas, right? So we're not having A, we're not having B. So probably we should start with C, right?
Yes, I would say
Okay.
it was A B B. I It's A B B C.
But we should start with we should not start with A because A in this case would be U.
It
U
would be
would
it
be
would be
A.
C. It would be C
C,
then.
right?
C
Okay.
C A. Is it A? C
C and then
A
enemy, enemy. So maybe the
free.
next one should be a D. C, D. What do you think?
Probably.
Okay, so C, D, and anything rhyming with feign? With C?
Free? No.
With no, right?
Again,
Feign
No.
and free.
again,
Again, right? So probably we're having a C, a D, and a C. What do you think?
yes.
Okay, feign, enemy, again, rhymes with feign. I, is that does it rhyme with any of the previous ones?
No.
No. So we're having C, D, C, and then E because we don't have any a rhyme word rhyming word before E. And free, does it rhyme with anything in the previous lines?
No.
No. So we should think of F, right?
F F
And me,
F.
F. F, F. All right. All right. Good. So that in terms of the rhyme scheme, right? The rhyme scheme. So then I guess one of the first things we have to do is to read the poem aloud, right? That's the first thing we need to do. So what if Visania, you take care of the first stanza, Grace, you read the second stanza, and Javier, you read the third stanza. Is that all right with you guys? What do you think, Visania? Would you like to start with the first one? Or you can negotiate with Javier and Grace. Got you on that, Visania. Sorry about connectivity. I've been there, so I totally understand. So, Grace and Javier, would you like to take care of the second and the third one? And the first one, Catherine Salgado, would you like to take a look at the
The first one, Professor?
Is that a yes?
I mean,
Yes,
to
the
start.
first one, please.
Okay, I will start. Butter my heart, three-person God for you, as yes, but no, breathe, shine, and seek to melt, that I may rise and stand, O ere throw me unbend. You're forced to break, blow, burn, and make me new. Do I need to continue?
I think that I have to read that one.
I think I lost you in the last lines of the first stanza. Yeah, Grace should read the second one, and Javier the last one, please. Thank you, though.
Okay. I like an usurped
Whenever you
town.
want, Grace.
Okay. I like an usurped town to another do. Labor to admit you, but all to no end. Reason your viceroy in me you should defend, but is captive and proves weak on or untrue.
Yet dearly I love
Thank
you.
you so much, Grace. No, Javier. Okay, sorry, go on.
Yes, mister. Yet dearly I love you, and will be loved fain, but am betrothed unto your enemy. Divorce me, untie, or break that knot again. Take me to you, imprison me, for I, except you enthrall me, never shall be free, nor ever chaste, except you ravish me.
All right, thank you so much. The idea of this poem, well, this is a poem written centuries ago, but the idea is to try to unveil the main purpose of the poem. The idea batter my heart, batter, if you take a look at the glossary, batter is quite a violent action, right? And they are very violent actions here. Batter, knock, overthrow, break, blow, burn, okay? All of these actions are connected with a very interesting action. I don't know if you know the name of this person that deals with metals and that can create or design and make swords. In the past, was able to make with a big hammer and in a furnace where he put everything into this very hot temperature. Do you know the name of this of this uh, uh, job?
Is it a blacksmith, mister?
A blacksmith. Excellent. So what's the idea of a blacksmith?
I will say that maybe the idea of the blacksmith is someone who can mold or bend the metal that he's working with in order to reshape it into, well, to shape it normally into a tool or a weapon.
Exactly. Exactly. Very, very, very well done. Very, very well stated. A blacksmith can reshape metal, can act. It's a creator, right? A blacksmith is a creator, and he can put into through blowing, through hitting, through a hammer, right? It can create
new objects that are very, very hard, right? He is hammering the metal onto this anvil. The anvil is the object that's below that receives, right, all the blows and hits. And the idea is that the blacksmith creates objects through these forceful and violent actions, right? But in the end, after all this hitting and blowing, there is a piece of art that might be something that is, connected with art or connected with like a sword or axe. So,
Sorry, connectivity again. Can you hear me now?
It feels like you are very far from the microphone now.
I'm very far from the microphone. Okay, sorry about that.
can you see the image I'm sharing with you?
Yes.
Okay, so that is a blacksmith, right? That is forging. That's a good word. Forging something into a weapon or an object full of art, actually. And it's hitting. If you see the image right here in the middle, he is using this hammer, right, to forge this piece into a specific shape. So this blacksmith, as a creator, is using these blows, right, hitting the metal into shape, right? All of these images can help us visualize that is not through tender care, right? It's not with very sensitive blows, but it's through quite a violent action that the metal turns into the specific object that the blacksmith, as a creator, wants to design, right? And that is the idea that we need to connect with a God as a creator, because the poet is asking God to batter my heart, to batter his heart. He asks God, batter my heart, just like a blacksmith, right? Three-person God. If you take a look at number 2, the author is referring to the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, right? As one single entity. For you as yet but knock, breathe, and shine to seek to mend and polish. All of these actions, right? Breathe and shine and seek to mend are all actions that you can connect with a blacksmith, right? Knocking is like hitting. Breathing is like they used a fire, right? They used a furnace, so they needed to blow so that as to make the fire more intense. And then if the fire was more intense, right? He could or she could shape the objects at his own or her own will. Um, and then in the third line, he says that I may rise and stand, right? That I may rise and stand. It's like a creation, right? The blacksmith is the creator, God. The poet asks him to put him or make him into shape so that he can stand again. And by that, he says, me and bend your force to break, blow, burn, and make me new. So he's asking to make him go through this process of being put violently into shape with all these blows, with all this burning, right? Because the metal has to be put into the fire to be able to be shaped into whatever the Creator wants. So to make me new. So this in a metaphorical way, he is asking God to put him to test from a psychological and religious perspective to make him a new man, to leave his sinning behavior, right, and to make him new, even if he has to suffer to go through this process. He is asking God to make him this new man through this concept of intense suffering, right? And in the second line, he says, I, like an assert town to another do. If you go to number 6, to another do, owing duty or obedience to another. So in this sense, we need to ask ourselves, to another do, who is he owing obedience to? If not to God, is he talking about A, the devil? Is he talking about sin in general? Is he talking about the world, the worldly pleasures? Is he talking about, what is he talking about? So essentially, he's not following, he feels he's not following God, or he is not so connected with God as he wished, but his focus, his interest is on another realm, on another area of life. Could be in maybe money, or maybe sex, or maybe a different religion. I don't know. That's something for you to decide, right? Labor to admit. Number 7, labor, work hard. So I work hard to admit you, but to no end, with no result. So I'm trying to accept you again. I'm trying to accept you, God, into my life again, but it's not working. Reason your viceroy in me should defend. Number 9, reason who represents God in the point should defend him. So reason you viceroy in me. Viceroy, if you are, or viceroy, as some say, is, well, Roy is king. I think it's connected with French somehow. So is like the second in place, not the one in command, right? It's like the vice president, right? Reason, you are like the vice president. You're not the leading here. But this get captive and proves weak or untrue. So he's definitely referring to his weak spirit, that God is not sort of owing him, right? But he is maybe sinning, or maybe being a sinner according to his perspective. But he's definitely, or he feels he's not following God's commands, right? Or God's truth. In the last stanza, he says, yet dearly I love you, and I will be loved fain. Number 10, willingly. I will be loved willingly. But I'm betrothed to your enemy. Betrothed unto your enemy. Who's the enemy? Betrothed, engaged to be married. So, but I'm married to your enemy. Who's God's enemy? That's for us to decide. What's God's enemy? What do you think from the poet's perspective? As I mentioned before, the worldly pleasures, other pagan gods, the devil, as some people may believe in. Who's the enemy? He feels that he is betrothed onto his enemy. Betrothed, like he's married. So it's a marriage that is hard to break, because he's asking God, divorce me, untie or break that knot again. He will not again. He once was married, and now he is again to God's enemy, and he's asking for help to be taken away from this, that it's God's enemy that's taking him away from following God. Pay attention to the concepts, right? Betroth, divorce, all right, because they are not there because it was a coincidence, right? There's a very specific choice of words that Don is using here. Take me to you, imprison me, for except you enthrall me, never shall be free. Except, number 12, unless you enthrall me, unless you make a slave of me, never shall be free. So how do you call this idea or concept that in here he is asking to be imprisoned to be free? Is that a literary figure? Anything that you can remember of? Imprison me so I can be free. How do you call that? Any idea, guys?
I think it is juxtaposition, or I think it is
Okay.
that word.
Okay. All right. Any other opinions? Whatever you remember. Is it an oxymoron or not really?
I think maybe it could be an antithesis.
Okay. That could be, right? Now, I present you two concepts in the chat box. One is oxymoron, and the other one is a paradox. Okay, so if you're not familiar with these two concepts, an oxymoron is an expression, usually a phrase, in which you have two elements, right? Two elements that are one next to each other, and they are quite opposite. Like when you say cruel, right? Like an intelligent fool. These two elements are two elements, two words next to each other, right? And they express opposite ideas, right? An oxymoron is a rhetorical device, right? Presenting a contradiction, basically. And well, a paradox, right, is a more complex idea. Is longer than just two words, right? It's more like a sentence, right? And I don't have any examples here. I will have to look for an example. But an example of a paradox is an idea. Okay, for example, I found this in Google. Save money by spending it. That is the beginning of the end. That is the beginning of the end. Make men work together, whether they work together or apart. So these are examples of a paradox, right? There's a very interesting example, which is a book called The Catch-22. I'm going to write it in the Catch-22. I think is Joseph Heller. I don't know if it's Joseph Heller or Keller, because I read this a long time ago. I'm going to go for Heller. And it's a very interesting idea of paradox. And actually, the expression catch-22, as far as I know, entered the dictionary. Let me Google again the idea. What would we do without Google, right? So Heller, Joseph Heller. So it is a very interesting paradox presented in this catch-22 about a pilot who was flying missions during, I think, Second World War, and he was really feeling that the next mission was going to be the last mission because he was going to be killed. He was going to be shot down. So he didn't want to fly again, and so he wanted to be sent home. But in order to be sent home, he would have to be declared insane, like crazy, right? So if he was declared insane, he wasn't able to fly a plane, right? Because he would be a problem or a menace, a threat for his own fellow soldiers. But in order to be declared insane, he would have to go to the doctor to be, to go under examination to be declared insane, right? The point is, the paradox is that if he decided to go to a doctor to be examined to be declared insane, then he was not crazy, because if you're crazy, you don't go to the doctor to to undergo examination. So that was the catch. The only escape was to be declared insane. But if you went to the doctor, then you were not insane. So how can you comply with the situation if the other situation was not fulfilled or achieved? So that is the catch-22 book, which I understand that it became or entered, right, the lexicon at least in United States. So whenever someone says, "Oh, this is a catch-22 situation," it means that it's paradoxical, right? That there's no way that A can be achieved if B is not achieved. So it's a circle, right? So that is the idea of a paradox. And in this sense, there is a paradox here when the author asks God to imprison him so he can be free. The other paradox here is, nor ever chaste except you ravish me. And ravish me, 14, possess me sexually or rape me. So how can you be chaste, right, if someone ravishes you? In the sense that you cannot be innocent, right, if you lose your innocence. So the idea of being ignorant if you start studying or reading about something, right? How can you be this? So these two situations presented here are paradoxical because they, in a sense, don't make sense because they're not going to, any of them is going to be fulfilled. That's one thing that we can see in this last stanza. The other thing that we can pay attention to is, right, the elements, betroth, which it's connected with loving relationship, right, or marriage. Divorce, which is also connected with marriage or the breaking of the marriage. The knot, again, the knot or that knot, it's also an expression, right, like to tie the knot that's connected with marriage as well. So it is interesting that he is referring to marriage with God, just like some people believe that are married to Jesus, like nuns, right? Or married to God, like priests, right? And then that's those are the concepts that he's using here. So he's mixing religion, he's mixing marriage, he's mixing also the concepts of imprison, right, and chase and ravish. So these the type of language is there to create a feeling, to create a reaction, right, in the reader, as to grab him by the shoulders and shake the reader because of the different concepts that are used in metaphysical poetry. In the case of John Donne, he used religious concepts, and also he used words connected with sex, right? So the combination is quite interesting and shocking at times. And some metaphysical poets also used concepts connected with technology, as new discoveries were being made at this time. So technology or scientific slangs, scientific jargon entered poetry. So that is an interesting combination, because we tend to see science and literature, or poetry specifically, be more specific, as two different and not overlapping realms, right? Two areas that are completely different: science language and poetic language. How can we combine them, right? Well, metaphysical poets find a way in which they can combine all these type of language, right? Um, Concepts, questions, anything that you want to say before we take a look at the questions 1 through 10 in the comprehension section? Any comments? Anything? I mean, I really loved the poem, or I really hated the poem. I don't get the poem.
Sorry, mister. I wanted
All right.
to I wanted to say that I liked the poem. It was quite enjoyable, with the link that my classmates and we shared last class. It was easier to understand it, and the way in which the author uh, puts the idea of sexuality in the poem through the language of the marriage and these unions that were mainly mainly I would say that managed by the church at those times, and that by being married married, you are able to uh, or you're allowed, maybe by the laws of God, to have sexual intercourse with someone of the opposite sex. So it's interesting the way in which these dogmas are presented here in the poem, and how the language of violence, in order to abandon this sort of ignorance of God and to become part of him more than under him, because it it it's I feel like it is implied, the idea of becoming one with God by all these concepts. For example, the one that is ravish, that has the meaning of rape, actually, and as well the meaning of being enchanted, being charmed by something. So it was quite interesting to read it. It's I feel like we can have a sort of idea of the ideologies that were part of society and of the author at those times by reading this um, intense poem.
Right. I like the way you stated your thoughts, particularly the the idea of this intense ideas expressed in this different poem. If we remember the previous ones, the sonnets have a very different shape, have a different aim. and a different strength. The first stanza portrays God as a creator, right? As a blacksmith, and it could be any other person, any other creator, but the author chooses sort of a blacksmith in order um, to portray this idea or depict this idea that he really has to be taken back to faith strongly, right? It's not a process of being carefully taken by the hand into the righteous path, but the idea of violence is a quite interesting contradiction, because in general you don't see violent acts connected with religion, right? So it's an interesting figure. You can picture this big, great blacksmith forging human beings' hearts and souls. Then in the second stanza, we see this comparison of himself or any human beings as a town and as a usurped town. So someone is reigning in this town, which it represents the person. It might be the person's soul, it might be the person's heart, the person's brain, but someone else is reigning, is the king or the queen, right? And just like a castle that is being attacked, right, or under siege, and he's asking to be defended by another army. So the idea of being or feeling like a usurped town, it's an interesting idea, because you can picture a town. We have all seen movies in which we see towns that are being attacked by by armies, right? So he's picturing himself as this usurped town, right? And then interesting comparisons of marrying religion again, marrying again, as Javier said, becoming one with God, becoming one with religion, right? And the conceits here are this metaphor. Remember that a conceit is this comparison or metaphor that it's right there. I mean, we don't get it at the very beginning, but when we take a second look, makes sense. I mean, imprison me to be free. Okay, like going back to strongly believe in religion, so to become free, and then the idea of growing back again, to be innocent, to be chaste in terms of religion. So it's like asking some sort of champion, right? Like in Arthurian stories, um, romances, what they were called at that time, to be rescued by the champion, to be rescued by a savior, right? That is the interesting that we compared religion or being married to God in the last stanza. I think that it's time for a short break. For those of you who are coming back, we're going to take a look at the comprehension sections, right? All the questions that were left as a task, okay? And after we take a look at the comprehension sections, we're going to take a look at the poem called The Flea and Other by John Donne, okay? This is the only class in which we are dealing with metaphysical poetry. And after this class, we're going to continue with the next topic, right? We're going to take a 10-minute break. After a 10-minute break, we again, right, some of the questions here in the comprehension section, and finally, some glimpses on The Flea by John Donne. So I'll see you in 10 more minutes. Enjoy the break, stretch your legs, go and grab something to eat or drink. I'll see you at, according to my watch, about 12:10.